Hello, my name is Rachel and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I wanted to share with you 5 ETFs that are available on Freetrade that might be worth you having a look at. Some of them are very popular, a couple of them are 2 investments that I currently hold in my investment ISA already. So I've already done the research and I've decided that they are good investments to make. And then one is an ETF that I think could be really interesting and potentially perform really well into the future. So these 5 different ETFs are with Vanguard, Invesco, and then also with iShares. So really big players in the ETF market. So I'm going to talk you through, first of all, the 2 investments that I have outside of Freetrade in my investment ISA. So the first ETF that I am invested in that is available on Freetrade is the NASDAQ 100. Now that's the Invesco one. So the code for that is EQQQ. So this is the famous index fund that tracks 100 of the top non-finance companies on the NASDAQ exchange. It has done really well in the last year. It's up 31.37%. It's done particularly well since I've held it. I think I bought it around about 4 months ago now, and it's done very well in the last few months, potentially because I bought it in a bit of a dip, which was more luck rather than judgment, because I don't try and buy the dips, but it's doing very well. So if you're interested in investing in tech companies, but you don't necessarily want to buy individual stocks and shares, then this could give you exposure to those top 100 non-finance companies on the NASDAQ. So coming in at number 2 is the iShares Global Clean Energy ETF. Now this is also an ETF that I hold in my ISA, and I also have a small amount of this in my SIP, which is my self-invested personal pension. This is one that I plan to hold on to for many years ahead as clean energy and sustainable energy hopefully continues to grow into the future. So in the last year its returns are 26.92%, and its description on Freetrade is: this ETF tracks an index of global companies that focus on sustainable and renewable energy production and distribution. So if you're particularly interested in clean energy or sustainable energy and think this might be something that you want to invest in, again without having to pick those individual stocks and shares but still getting that exposure, then the iShares Global Clean Energy might be one that's worth looking at for you. The code for that is INRG. So for the next 2, it might come as no surprise, they are Vanguard ETFs. So Vanguard essentially invented the index tracker and the ETF years and years ago, and their ETFs do tend to have very low fees and are definitely worth having a look at. I don't hold either of these investments, just to say I prefer to invest in actively managed funds for these specific markets. However, if you're a beginner looking to get exposure to the American market, then the S&P 500 Vanguard ETF might be worth you looking at. So the code for that is VUSA. Now the S&P 500, as it sounds, holds the 500 largest US stocks. So its Freetrade description is: it tracks the investment results of 500 of the most valuable US public companies. So this is a really good ETF if you are looking to get exposure to the American market. It has historically done very well. A lot of people just invest purely in the S&P 500. In the last year, it's gone up 26.66%, which is an amazing return considering this is a very low effort way of investing. The next ETF from Vanguard that might be worth you considering is the FTSE All World. So its code is VWRL, and this tracks the global stock market. So it's done very well again in the last year, up 22.13% at present. With over 3,000 holdings, this fund tracks an index of large and medium-sized companies from around the world. So if you're absolutely new to investing and you just want to buy an index tracker or ETF that is tracking the world's market, so getting you lots of diversity, lots of exposure, then this is probably the one for you. So it's the FTSE All World by Vanguard, and it's the VWRL. This is a kind of no-brainer. You're not having to look to diversify. You probably don't need to go ahead and invest in individual stocks and shares unless you really want to as well. This is a really strong staple ETF for a lot of people and could do you very well. Then the final one is one that I wanted to include because I've personally been doing some research into adding another ETF to my portfolio, and I thought this one sounded very interesting, and there was a lot of good reasons to invest in it. So it is the iShares Global Clean Water ETF. So in the last year, this has gone up 35.35%. So very strong returns in the last year. So the code for this ETF is IH20, and the description is: this ETF tracks the performance of an index composed of 50 of the largest global companies with water-related businesses, from water utility to water tech. I was reading a statement that was made by the WWF recently, which predicted that by 2025, 2/3 of the world's population may face water shortages unless a solution is found. And this got me thinking about how water is a precious commodity. A lot of people are calling it the kind of blue gold of investing, and it might potentially be an ETF that does very well in the future. So at the moment, I'm just going to do a little bit more research into it, but this might be something that I'm adding to my portfolio. So it's a little bit of a wild card and something I will look into more, but I just thought it was something that sounded very interesting and potentially worth investing in. So those are my top 5 ETFs that are available on Freetrade that I think are worth investing in. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, please do your own research. I'm definitely not an expert or a financial advisor. I'm just an investor who is investing for myself, for my own personal circumstances, and your circumstances and situation might be very different to mine. But if you are looking to start getting into investing and you want to take the route of investing in ETFs on a platform like Freetrade, then these 5 ETFs might be a good starting point for you to look at. Thank you so very much for taking the time to watch this video and getting this far. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're all having a really lovely day. Bye bye.